yes.
responding.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. We'll get
All
started
right.
now.
Sorry, Scott. Okay. Want to thank everyone for taking time, as always, out of their busy days to come listen to us today. And it's pretty interesting content that we have to share with you guys today. So without further ado, let's just get the disclaimer out of the way. So just want to make sure that everybody is aware that we here at Trade Ideas are not registered investment advisors. So please do not misconstrue what we're sharing with you here today as a solicitation to buy or sell anything. So everything that we share with you guys here today is strictly for educational purposes. Okay, that takes care of that. So as always, we're going to talk a little bit about where the market is, and what could we possibly expect tomorrow, and resistance levels and things of that nature. Then we're going to talk about Holly and move on to some market psychology stuff as well, and then talk about the change lubricant, the short interest, and the limit alert functionality, which I got to say, when we were first tossing that idea around about limit alerts, I don't think anybody had quite an idea what it was going to look like in its finished form and how useful it was going to be, but we're going to show you that today as well. Okay, so let's just minimize this for now, and give me 1 second here. I hit the wrong button. Okay, so let's just make sure that the right screen is being shown. Okay, Steve, correct me if you can see my screen with all my windows, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Got your Trade Ideas little default layout there.
Just making sure with the other difficulty that we had that
we're not seeing the unicorns and the My Little Pony stuff on your other screen. Don't worry.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the market in general real quick here, Steve, before we get going with the juicier stuff. So, here's the daily on the SPY, and of course we popped out of the meat grinder recently. But now that we're out, we're still in a little bit of a, I guess can't call it no man's land, but still nobody knows what's going to happen for certain here. And just like we always say here, we're not in the prediction mode, but we try to set out some general guidelines on what to expect, right? So we want to take a look at the moving averages real quick.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's take a look at free stock charts. I'll pick up here a little bit too. We talked a lot last week about that psychological level of 2,000 in the SPX index, 200 corresponding in the SPY ETF, and we got left hanging last Friday with a little kind of a spinning top there with a wick to the top and the bottom, after basically touching those levels we talked about, and reaching those levels with a wick like that, not closing on highs. I kind of thought that we would hit that level and pull back, but boy, we've got some resilience here in the market today. We tried to sell off midday, but we didn't. We pushed back up near highs, and I think that fooled a lot of some of the traders. I even saw a guy on on Twitter last night saying, "So everybody's hedging, right?" Because I think that was kind of the prevailing sentiment. 4 or 5 days of really good run right into our upward area that we talked about, that 200 area, and I think a lot of people were expecting a bounce back and a red candle today and maybe a little pullback, but we did not get that. And so digging deeper into that market dynamic, it's really telling me there's something behind this move here. There's a little bit of energy behind this move, and yeah, we did hit our targets, and we did bounce off our targets. We didn't go through like butter. I don't think anybody expected that. But where are we going to go from here over the next few days? I think if you look at that flattening purple line, that's that 200-day moving average. That's going to be a brick wall of some resistance above us, in my opinion. But if we do wind up pulling back, we talked about that 10-day moving average in yellow last week, showing direction, a market in direction, whether it's an up direction or a downside direction, is usually going to be supported by that momentum line, or a fast line. I call it the momentum line, the fast line, the 10-day moving average line. So if we do get a hiccup and a pullback in price, I'd be looking for that to be maybe the first place to test, maybe on an early first hour spike down and reversal to try and test those levels. I've seen that many times. Or if we don't get the pullback in price, maybe we just continue to get the upward momentum that we've had today and continue in kind of a sideways fashion, and rather than correcting over price, maybe we correct over time. You know, a good 3 or 4 days of sideways trading can always do the trick and build a better base camp for some potential energy to try and push higher up into that 200-day moving average. But I think the takeaway here for me, in my perspective, is a lot of people expected, and we'll touch on this and how it relates to Holly because there's a good sidebar there as well. A lot of my friends and traders, we fully expected to maybe pull back a little bit today, but we didn't get it. And so the takeaway again is there's some momentum behind this upward move that we've had coming out of last week, and a continuation of some good bidding today as well. So maybe we don't get a pullback. Maybe we're going to test that upper level of 200-day moving average before we test a pullback. Who knows? But I think the story of today was kind of unexpected strength across the board from a lot of the people I survey and talk to on a daily basis.
Yes, indeed. And, Holly, watching her performance today, Steve, was it's the epitome of, we could say, man versus machine. Because myself, you, all of our cohorts, we're all thinking the same thing. I don't know if we're going to continue to the upside, but guess what? Today, and let's just pull up the all trade blotter here for Holly. So here we're seeing all the positions. So we'll sort by time over here, and you can see 6:40 Pacific Standard Time, she starts initiating longs. 5 minutes later, another. Boom, 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 just piling into longs, right? And of course, Steve and I, we're sitting here, we're like, okay, she's pretty aggressive. Now, first and foremost, let's just talk about what was in the hopper this morning. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this was, done Friday night. So yeah. I saw Friday night. I'm like, okay, so for a Monday, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 longs and 1 short.
And I'll just jump in. That was kind of the discussion over the weekend between myself and Jamie and Andy and a few other traders that we talked to. There's boy, Holly's really loading up for the long side next Monday, huh? After a good run, and we're all kind of like, yeah, with our traders hat on and our emotions, we kind of know that this could be interesting, but it didn't turn out that way, which is really the story.
Right, and to give people a little bit of background who are new out there, who are not Trade Ideas subscribers, Holly's been online now, what, Steve, a little over, I guess we're approaching the 3-month level.
Somewhere around there, yeah.
Somewhere right around there, a little over. But, Holly's birthday was just 3.5 months ago, so she's only 3.5 months old. So, we, myself, Steve, Dan, Brad, we all have tenures in the industry stretching back to the early 90s. So we've seen and done a lot of things. So this is our creation, and it's a statistical model, right? It's the perfect example of man versus machine, as I said earlier, because during this load-in period this morning, we're all a little apprehensive, and of course these are 5-minute bars on the SPY, so you're like, okay, well, yeah, and then of course here might have thrown people a few, curveballs or whatever, but not Holly, not the unemotional, statistically sound system, right? Just keeps piling into the longs. And of course, what we see on the charts as a human being, we want to see nice, pretty pictures. We want to see something that makes us comfortable. But as I tell people all the time, whether it's in a training session or, just another random conversation about statistical trading versus technical, is that a lot of the times the pattern that you see on a statistical generated buy signal is not going to be real comfortable. It's going to make you uncomfortable as a human. But that is the difference between a system that is basically laying down high probability potential outcomes for the next day and going strictly on a technical and what does the picture look like. Now, sometimes those pictures are going to jive with the signal, right? But, more times than not, they will not. So, today it was really just a thing of beauty to see Holly position herself across the board in so many longs, and when we look at the total trade count today, I believe we came in, let's see, 16 and 38. a little over 60 trades today that were generated, and the majority of them, if we sort by the long or the short, one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 shorts.
Again, if you'd have told me that over the weekend, hey, Steve, Holly's going to launch about 50 some odd longs and just a few shorts, I would have been like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting because my mind and my trader's hat's telling me we're bumping right up into resistance here in the daily charts. Okay, Holly, I hope you're right. Well, God, it's just another reminder that what we don't see sometimes is there, and it was a correct one today.
Absolutely. So, Holly on the short term, and, just to refresh everybody's memory, or, to inform the people that are not familiar with what they're seeing here, all of these strategies are geared for short hold times, 60 minutes. Some will pop in every once in a while that are a little bit longer, but that's because, Holly has to be flat at the end of every day. So once that signal comes to exit, as a human being interacting with this technology, if you're in a good trade that was generated by Holly and you think there's more upside to it, well then, as Steve likes to say, that's when you got to put on your trader's hat and go, okay, I'm going to, put a trailing stop in, or take half and, take a static stop loss for the rest in order to try to get more out of your trade. So the results that you're seeing here, 3 points on 60 trades, that's Holly either getting stopped out if the trade doesn't work, or stopping the trade out exactly at the 60 minutes. So that brings up a good time to talk about a simple but very powerful column that we've recently added to the AI, which is the non-exit column. So this gives you a good idea, okay, had I stayed in it, how much better or worse would I have done today? And, pretty much if you look through all of these today, nothing stands out too much with the exception of BTU.
Yeah, and then let me add to that, because once again, putting your trader's hat on, like Jamie just said, Holly has to get out before the end of the day. If you guys have been paying attention to the market, you know that energy has been absolutely exploding for days on days now. And when you see a stock like that, knowing, well, Holly has to get out, but this is an energy stock, maybe there is some more upside to this thing. Maybe there is some more meat on the bone. So that's a good example of when you could come in and use the gray box mentality on here. Black box being you sit back and you watch the machine get you in and get you out. You don't do anything. Gray box is a label for a machine that brings up to your attention a great opportunity for a trade entry, but getting out is discretionary. It's up to you. It's based on what you see and what you feel and what you're looking at. And Holly is a gray box opportunity because, again, she has to get out every day and go home flat. We don't have to. And using the BTU as an example, knowing the sector, knowing what's hot, knowing the short squeezes that have been going on out there, that can give you a little extra information wearing your trader's hat to stay in a trade longer than Holly may do so, and it's just nothing more than confirmed here on the non-exit profit column, and that's pretty damn good non-exit profit for a $3 stock, if you ask me.
Well, absolutely. Ironically enough, 2 of the biggest winners today were relatively low-priced stocks. Now, as we talk about all the time, this is what happened if you're just, Holly obeying the short exit time, 3 points and change. But once again, Holly is good at saying, okay, these events are going to be the most statistically probable for the next trading session. All right, that's where her strong suit is, the entry and the statistical probability of that entry. But as human beings, say when the BTU trade comes up, and I just double-clicked on it, it automatically shows us in the trade ideas charts here where the entry signal was. So that first entry was in that 7:05 Pacific Standard Bar, 10 o'clock Eastern, 10:05. So from a trader's perspective, when I see this, I'm like, okay, small dollar stock, great, I'll take a punch at it. And then we get the sideways action. And then, of course, depending on the type of trader you are, which in my world, I love to play these range breaks, since the open. And we can see, even though that wick kind of messed things up a little bit, still not that big of a discrepancy. So, I put a line straight across here so you can see you're already in 100, 200 here, right? Whatever your trading denomination or dollar amount might be. And then you're in that, you got some skin in the game here, so you're watching your P&L flow, and then, if you're like me, you're like, well, if it busts out of the range today and pops that new high with some, some decent volume behind it, I'm probably going to add to my position here. And as we all know, one of the hardest parts is deciding when you're going to add to a winner, The other side of that equation is always making sure you cash your losers when you're supposed to. But in any case, an excellent opportunity here in BTU. You're already in it from here, add to it here. Now you're in 400 shares, right? Then you're watching your P&L flow here, boom, boom, boom. And then once again, another opportunity, another breakout opportunity. And, then you get another good punch here because all these are very low risk entries, especially if you're looking back the prior 15 minutes to establish your risk. Very low risk, extremely high profit potential here, and you were first in it back here. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than what you see here today. This is a great example of a trade around, because you're in it, you're like, I'm not getting out, when it punches here, and then it's off to the races. So these are all things that you don't see when we're going over the numbers, reviewing the statistical outcomes and, how they did on their timed holds. So that's why we invented this column. So if you haven't been using this or you haven't, added it, once again, just right click, go to columns and add that bad boy because it gives you a lot of insight. On the flip side of that coin, we can go look at the losers that we did take, that we took, and a lot of the times there's trade arounds and trades that didn't go your way, but you identify another pattern and say to yourself, okay, if it does this, this, and this, I'd like to be alerted to it.
I'll tell you what's nice to see there, Jamie, is it's always nice to see that non-exit column in red, greater values than the closed P&L, which just reminds us that Holly does a great job of helping manage risk using smart stops and using the algorithms that is used to try and keep the risk-reward in a workable ratio. And so I always like to see that as well.
Right. So the BTU was a great trade around. And every day, depending on, sometimes on a small sample of trades, there's a large amount of trade around. Today is kind of the opposite because we had 60 plus trades, and the trade arounds were, that stuck out like this were pretty few and far between. I'd say BTU was a really good trade around today. And then, let me resort my blotter here. Well, work with me. Okay. Where is it? This one was not quite as pretty, but here was the first entry signal here. If you were looking at a 15-minute look-back period, from the entry bar, it would have come pretty close to stopping you out, but then we had another opportunity here as well. So, not quite as pretty as the BTU, and then we had one more, which was this one, which, once again, this is right up my alley because, let's see, when was the first entry there? Let's see, the first, this one was one of those that double fired today. Okay, so we can see that was the first signal that Holly generated there, and then we kind of go sideways, and this one, time stopped out down 18 cents. But, if you're a person like me who does these patterns, once we go range bound, and then we start seeing this slow step up here, low risk entry for that range break again, and then, hey, you could have put a buy stop limit in, got that auto execution, or, bottom line is that even though the blotter does not reflect it, this was a really great trade around setup, and the only reason I knew about it is because Holly lost a little bit of money on it on the long side.
Hey, Jimmy, do you have an updated performance chart? There is a question in there somebody's asking, and I think always a visual is the best way to respond.
Sure.
And so there is a point basis versus the S&P SPY point basis. We're going to be making this more interactive as we go forward to break it down by day and by trades, but for the most part, that is the point performance aggregate of all of Holly's trades nestled up next to the S&P SPY. So, but like I said, Dan and the development team have some great ideas on how to make that much more user-friendly and much more interactive going forward. We'll have a lot more information going forward on that, but we're just happy to see a nice spread there between the performance and the aggregate of Holly.
Absolutely, and once again, we have to measure ourselves by something, so we just figured that would be the right thing to measure against. Of course, in that chart, you don't get to see all the trade around opportunities and things of that nature as well, but it's a good measuring stick.
All right, what next?
Okay, so those were the 3 trade arounds, but I mean, ladies and gentlemen, just between U and T, okay, having an entry signal here, ETU, and a couple of trade arounds, you could have made your whole day just on those 3 trades alone, but don't worry, we have much, much more. So, Steve, before we move along, do we want to revisit some of those trade of the weeks, that we've been, telling people?
Well, yeah, I think there's probably a good segue here as we go from this to the market psychology and to the other stuff we're looking at. A lot of the trade of the weeks that have been we actually crowdsource those internally. We do a lot of discussion. We did that this morning with our trade of the week, which was SCTY. That's the fresh one that I think was and is going to be a good candidate. But once again, we're looking for these lower end daily charts that have been beat up but are trying to dig themselves out of a hole and reestablish a possible trend break. And then those, in our opinion, are the best risk-reward ratios to try and share our thoughts and our opinions with the public on to keep people, from chasing momentum on the upside, only to see the rug pulled out from underneath them. You can see some bigger risks on those types of trades. But it just occurred to me, I looked up a few of them. I think Shake Shack had earnings today, but it was doing well going into earnings. We also had, let's see if it's recovering after, a little bit of a bounce, but not much. But there was a good 2 weeks of some upside movement in Shake Shack. Click on that daily so you can see what's going on. We had FCell last week is still intact and doing well. These are all very similar in terms of looking for the nice risk reward or using our trend change lubricant type philosophy. Good. FCell is doing very well. ICON was another one from 3 weeks ago, I think. I think that one's still doing well. And the point I'm making in here is, so many people say, well, how do you use trade ideas for longer term type stuff? It seems like this is just all day trading stuff. Well, it's not, because we're trying to find some of these trade of the weeks that can be held for, more than a day, more than 2 days, more than a week. Look at ICON. I don't know what the news was there, but it was shaping up nicely.
It was a really nice gap.
Yeah, really nice gap. And not only that, take a look at the 3 dojis going into it on that daily chart there. Nice sideways pattern, before the gap up. But again, my point is here, we're trying to find some trades that are going to move on and be decent to hold for longer than just a few days, maybe a couple weeks. I don't know, and it's up to people out there to understand when stocks are going through earnings. Like Shake Shack had earnings today. It could have gone either way. Could have been a nice move either way. Who knows? But the point is we're trying to find some setups out there in the trade of the week that are good to hold for longer than a day or a week. And if you don't have the trade of the week email set up, you really should get on that, and you can get that by going to info@trade-ideas.com and asking for the link to be put on that email list, which comes out on Mondays. And backtracking, like I said, we all get together and we have a pool over the weekend. We put together a small bucket of 4 or 5 names, and then we kick it around, kind of like the NCAA bowl selection committee, and figure out who's going to be the number 1 pick, and not just run it through one person and one person's bias. We have a few different opinions pop in, and so what we came up with today was SCTY, Solar City, and knowing the personality of Solar City, if this thing gets going in the right direction, you can get some pretty decent moves on this thing. So that is a really good transition to talk about some market psychology today. I see some good questions in there. We'll get to them here, but I want to continue my thought here on market psychology. So go ahead and bring up maybe that slide, Jamie. We're going to talk about cycles in the market and how they relate to us human beings and our emotions and our tendency to follow our emotions. And this chart is derived from my very, very good friend Brian Shannon at alphatrends.net. If you don't know Brian, he's a very well-respected educator. He's got a great service as well, and he's also wrote a great book on trading different time frames in the stock market. I highly recommend that. So this is borrowed from him. I want to give him full credit. But what you're looking at here is just not a particular stock in general. It's just the different stages of market psychology. And it repeats itself. On the left-hand side, we've got hope and disbelief coming out of a stock that's been beaten up, rising into optimism, and then everybody's belief, everybody's getting on board and bandwagon. All right, this is a GoPro back when it was doing really great, euphoria. Call up your wife, honey, let's go ahead and buy that lakefront lot we were thinking about because we're going to be retiring, in 5 years. And this is how it was in 1999, in the NASDAQ, and the complete euphoria where you could just do no wrong. And then you get an edge of complacency where, there's no real change in sentiment or emotions, but we get some sideways price action. And then all of a sudden becomes a little more anxiety and then denial. No, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. Then panic, and panic leads to capitulation. And then we're down in the doldrums again. Down here, finding a base, trying to go to lows, making a new low, can't make a new low, sideways, depression. And then it turns back into disbelief, and the cycle starts again, back to hope, back to optimism. And so these are, again, the reason that we're trying to find these types of setups using this trend change lubricant, which we've talked about many times, which essentially is looking for, the nut configuration of a trend change lubricant is looking for stocks that are in the lower 1/3 of their 52-week range. However, on the highest 99 percentile, in other words, 1% away from a 20-day high. And that's the simplest way we can configure this trend change lubricant for looking for these types of moves. Because if you go to the next slide, you'll see this really is where the best risk reward comes, the highest potential for earning down there at the bottom. Is when everybody else, and you've heard me talk many times about being the contrarian, going against the herd, look what happens when you run with the herd in euphoria. Sometimes you're gonna go off the cliff with the lemmings. But if you are a contrarian thinker and are trying to find setups that are coming out, Phoenix is rising from the ashes, you're going to have the best chance for longer-term hold. And that's why some of these trades of the weeks, they might be a good hold for a month or two, maybe even longer. We're trying to catch these longer-term cycles on the lower end of the sine wave there where your highest potential for earnings are. And that's the philosophy and the reason why we're looking at so many of these types of setups. I'm sure there's people that are saying, why do these guys keep looking at these stocks that have been beaten up? Well, you sprinkle some short float on there and you start to get moves like X. Those are the moves we're looking for. And, I don't know if this was the right time to talk about some of these some of these short float squeezes, but I'll just go ahead and throw it out there now. I mentioned Jamie, I'd mentioned it. Shield, Sears Holding, once again, I feel like this could turn into an X. Look at that. It's running up into resistance in that limit alert line that Jamie set. If this thing gets pushed through there, this thing's about 80% short the float, maybe even 90, depending upon where you draw your fundamental data from. But this SHLD, guys, write it down, because if it starts to do what X did, it's going to have more than a day and a half move that you've heard me talk about, a nice day and a half move. This thing has so much pent-up short fear built into it that if the squeeze does get on, all I'm looking for is a nice 3, 4, maybe a 5-day move like X put in last week and today, or yesterday, Friday, and that's it. That's it. You're not married to this company. I don't care about the fundamentals. You guys can email me all you want about who so-and-so says this thing's a BK candidate. I don't care. All I'm doing is looking at the footprint in the sand here, knowing what I know about the short float out there, putting myself in their position. If I don't cover here, maybe I'm going to risk getting short squeezed pretty hard with the rest of them, and maybe I better get out early. So, if you do see this thing trigger over the next week, keep an eye on it, because it could turn into an X-type trade very easily, and that's what we want to try and do here, is give you guys, some ideas going forward that might work out.
Right. And by the way we derived all that information is through trade ideas. So what I'd like to do now is kind of circle back around to, for the people who aren't familiar, or the people who are not Holly subscribers yet, kind of circle back around and do another little flyover of what's happening behind the scenes. What makes this panel so valuable, and why are there some strategies some mornings and other strategies other mornings, and we were all heavily weighted long, and what's taking place behind the scenes to make all of this happen. So to do that, as many of you know, the back tester that we have is the odds maker. So for example, we can back test any window here. So let's see here, something keeps taking my mouse, I don't know what it is. All right, so if we right click and say backtest strategy, and I'm just going to run a quick one real quick here just to give people an idea of what's happening. So here I'm telling the system we're going to sit out the first 30 minutes, and then we're just going to say, okay, if I bought everything, 30 minutes into the open, and then any alert that came across this window, I bought it, and I held it for 15 minutes with no stop loss, no profit target. Show me what would have happened. So we're going to let this calculation run. And so what it's doing is it's going back and grabbing all the trades.
Already we can tell it's garbage because of the direction it's going.
Right. We would see 50%, we know, well, there might be some meat on the bone, but this is just a preliminary scan to show you, number one, it's doing what nobody sitting here could hope to do in a matter of weeks or months. It's going to come back with a sample of trades. 2,971 trades were just back tested. And here's what would have happened if we just bought everything blindly and dumped it after 15 minutes. Well, we win more than a coin flip, but we got a, not good scenario playing out here. 25 cents average winner, 27 cents average loser. Needless to say, it's a losing proposition. Now, the one thing to point out, since we can see these lines, is most backtesters out there just show you this black line. If that's the case, you're like, hey, there might be, look, it's up $6,000. Okay, well, no, most people don't trade for free. And then there's what we call slippage, So really, it's a huge losing proposition. So without, staying on this topic too long, just back tested 2,971 trades. So I'm thinking to myself, well, that's a nice sample to start with. Maybe I can pare this thing down, do a little optimization, and find where the real gold lies, right, through the optimization process. So I would go over here, and then I could optimize by price, time of day, even repeat offenders that come through here, the top performing stocks for that particular strategy. But when we want to get real nitty-gritty, we optimize by every other filter contained within trade ideas, and we can go there and see if we can make some changes that would improve the sample. And by the way, to get this down to a tradable event for manual trading, I'd have to bring that trade count down by about 10-fold, just so I'd have a manageable data stream. So the bottom line is this. Here I go, start to optimize, rerun the back test, repeat an unknown number of times, and me as a human, after about 2 hours, I might find something, maybe after 3 hours, or maybe I just get tired and give up for the night because it's just not happening. So it's a very laborious and time-consuming effort, the back testing alone, and then the optimization. So what's going on behind the scenes with Holly is we've got a core of about 35 to 40 strategies in what we call the collective quantitative combine. And what happens with those strategies is that after today's market data is folded into our database, every tick of every stock, then Holly goes through and re-optimizes and, number one, backtest multiple times and re-optimizes every time. And then based on a proprietary scoring system that we've developed, only the candidates out of that combine of 35 to 40 strategies that meet minimum score criteria, that's going to be the starting team for the next day.
I think Jamie would agree with me when we say how many times it's happened to us where I'm like, oh, I cannot wait to test this. This is going to be great. And whoops, nope, it's not.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
where this backtesting tool can come in is save you a lot of time sometimes thinking you've got the greatest uh, new strategy, and it's just you're going to keep it all for yourself, and this is just going to be awesome. And then you get in there, and Holly says, "Well, I just tested 61 days, and this is crap. I'm sorry. What else you got?" And so
Right,
that
and
doesn't
this was
happen.
all, this system was developed because of the trials and tribulations that we as traders were going through our own selves with the backtester type we created, because we would spend hours and hours creating a quality set. Maybe it would work for 3 days. Maybe it would work for a week. Sometimes it worked for 20 trading days, a whole month. But the only guarantee in the market is that it's going to stop working.
At some point, it's going
And
to
then
stop
what do?
working.
You're like, well, now I have to start from the base again, and I have to re-optimize it to adapt to today's market, because things have changed.
Too
Well,
much
then,
work.
okay, then good luck. So we created this technology out of necessity so that we could, transcend these boundaries that we were running into. And
Yeah.
so here it is, and so, everybody needs to keep in mind that this type of technology, this is high-end stuff. It's only been previously available to high-end hedge funds, big banks, because just the cost to develop a system of this nature was, cost prohibitive, and then you had to have the coders and the knowledge, blah, blah, blah. So this really is the first model of its kind that's being made available to the retail public. So, just wanted to kind of, take a step back and explain the technology of what's going on here. These just aren't strategies that we all think are going to do good the next day. There is hardcore analysis going on, to the tune of about 1 million trades per session, I believe, Steve. It was around
Yeah.
800,000, but I think it's crept up to
It's
just
up
over
over
a
around a
million now.
million. The capacity's there. Hey, real quick before we move forward to the next topic, who is it? Looks like Carl had a great segue as we were talking earlier about looking for the trend change lubricants and how, some people might wonder, why the heck are we looking at these types of charts? Just I'll summarize. On Wednesday, Dan shared his limit alert window with symbols, and one of them was FIT. And Fitbit isn't quite there yet. It's trying, but we may look at that one later. But he's noticing that most of the symbols on Dan's limit alert window had the same type of look on the daily, where the symbol had been steadily going down for some time, then basing, and then finally showing a nice sign of turning up, just like the trade today of SCTY, Solar City. Are any of the trade ideas strategies looking for this kind of setup, and if so, which ones? The answer, Carl, is yes. And if anybody else wants to know, if you look in the chat window, I have pasted in the cloud link, which is a string of code. If you load that into your cloud and load that into your system, you'll have what's called the trend change lubricant, which is being highlighted there in green on Jamie's screen. And that's where we're pulling a lot of these gems from. So we want everybody to have this stuff. We want everybody to succeed and have, both hands ready to go, not one hand tied behind your back. So there's never a problem with sharing some of the stuff that we're using, and that's what we really enjoy about not only Trade Ideas webinars and doing this, but also the live trading room. There's a lot of sharing and collaboration going on in the live trading room as well. So I just wanted to hit that before we got too deep into the questions and moved on too far. This is where we're deriving a lot of those trades of the week there, Carl, and anybody else that wants it, it's in the chat window.
Right. And so let's do this. Let's talk about the limit alerts now, because as I said earlier, at first it sounds like a very simplistic limit alerts. Tell me when a stock gets to this price. But the spin that we've put on it is pretty interesting here. So, one of the nice things about it is that here you're looking at a list of limit alerts contained in my limit alert window. And we've been, just feeding these in ever since probably right here, February 24th. So you can see this since triggering. This is a point total. So based on all of these alerts that have triggered, they account for about 107 points. Now keep in mind, we've been sharing here at Trade Ideas this window, so we've been creating a little cornucopia of all the ones that we've each set, and then it merges them all together. But this is very eye-opening, because in the past, I'm sure some of you out there are probably, most of you are trading live, but there's probably some of you who are new to the game, or you're just paper trading right now, and we always used to laugh in the old days because everyone made money in demo mode. It's kind of one of the running jokes, but you'd sit there in front of your platform and you'd literally write down the trade that you're in and then monitor its progress. Or later on, when the platforms became more advanced, they would let you log into demo mode, and you could actually, hit the fake trade, see it show up, and keep your P&L. But this is a completely different spin on it because it's not just on a day basis. It's one could trigger from 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and that's the beauty of this window because they're server-side held at Trade Ideas, so they don't expire. It's always cool when you see a trade alert pop up that you set from a month ago or 2 weeks ago, and you're like, hey, looks good, I'm in it. So it's really becoming a whole new way to paper trade and give you the ability to also share these limit alerts with other people. So in the future, imagine someone shared a list with you and you liked that list. So you'll be able to just right-click and say, I'd like to message the creator of this list. And then maybe, before too long, you're crowdsourced trading in a sense with only high-quality individuals that you want to, be in tune with. So we're really trying to push the limits here and take things, once again, that have been there forever, but put new, useful ways of using them into play in our technology here.
Yeah, I don't think I can emphasize enough how cool it is when that light bulb went off in my head one night when Dan was doing this and he was talking about some new functionality that nobody had really seen before. And when he said, oh, well, this is copyable into the cloud. You want this? Sure, here you go. And then the light bulb went off. It's like, well, wait a minute. This is crowdsourcing other people's homework and other people's style, and there could be some really interesting value going forward. I don't know what's going to come of it, but the foundation is really set here for a very, very cool crowdsourcing tool to share your settings and your configurations with people, anybody. I wouldn't be surprised to see somebody turn this into some sort of a service at some point if they're able to really pull some good stuff out of there and demonstrate it, with that cents long P&L that was added recently. It speaks volumes.
Yes, indeed, it does. It does, and that leads to another good point here. Just a comment I'd like to make about we're a software company in the financial field, and anybody that's ever dealt with software, either being an end user of that software in the trading field or being a programmer on the other side of the fence, development usually moves at such a snail's pace. It's painful. We are pumping out so many development versions. There's probably 2 coming out every week right now, new builds that we all test before they become available on the download page on the beta version. I believe 5.4 is available beta format right now. But ladies and gentlemen, that development pace is unparalleled, if not unheard of, in this industry. So we continue to pump out the new builds, to add new things, and so hopefully this is just a taste of what's to come with the limit alerts as we add layer and layer upon it. It's going to be very revolutionary.
It's because we're lean and mean.
That is true. That is true. And I guess, between the 4 of us, we've got a little over 100 years experience in the market, which that's never a bad thing either.
Nope. Okay, well, right. Where should we go next? Should we talk with Scott, or should we go with some questions, or?
I don't know, Scott, you ready to do your thing, or what do you have on the table over there?
No, it's up to you. If you feel like you're rolling along pretty well, I can wait, or we could just talk about pricing real quick, and then I could...
Yeah, let's do that. Let's give them some good codes and some good deals for pricing, for being so patient, listening to us drone on here for 45, 50 minutes, and then any remaining straggling questions that come in, we'll just wrap it up with that.
Yeah, that sounds
good.
Yeah, so we're a software as a service company, and I know some of you don't currently have a subscription since we asked those questions earlier, so the rest of you can bear with me for a moment here. But it's $99 a month or $888 for the year, and obviously $888 over $99 a month saves you a lot of money. That includes all of your data, including the exchange fees. It also includes training. There's a full hour of one-on-one training. The best thing to do as soon as you become a subscriber is go to the support section, click on training, and select your preferred time and date. It also includes the charting that you've seen, and you can test the backtesting module, which is a portion of the AI channel. Now, to get the AI channel, which includes limit alerts and all that other high-functioning stuff, does require the one-time license. It's an $1,100 license fee, and that also gives you full access to the backtesting module, the odds maker. So you get the AI, those limit alerts, the odds maker, lets you test your own strategies without programming, or you can listen to Holly and find strategies that are working in the market right now. What I would like to do to thank everyone for attending is give you guys some discounts. So if you want to look at the handouts panel in your GoToWebinar interface there, you'll see the exact PDF, which has the exact same slides you're going to look at now, which has the product code on them. So if you download that PDF, you can save this to your desktop and do this later, but you need to do it by Friday because that's when the code here ends. Holly 9, and it is case sensitive, so HOLLY is all capitals. Holly 9 on checkout will take half off your first month, 20% off your first year, or 30% off the AI license. So you can, if you're already a subscriber and want to get the limit alerts, the AI, and the backtesting module, the odds maker, just use that code, 770, and you've got it for life, and it saves you a bunch of money over the 1100, which is the retail. You can get a year for 710 for the first year, renewing at 888, or try us for your first month, 49 bucks. There's really no risk. It's no contract at all. You can still get a package, and the next slide shows you that. If you go to the link right there, bit.ly/AI Holly, it's just a short code to take you there. You can also click through from the PDF. But when you get to that page, and it is case sensitive, the AI Holly, so bit.ly/AI Holly takes you to a page where you can click through to buy the 1988 package, which is the 888 for the year and 1100 for the AI odds maker license. But the code takes 508 off of it right away because it's taking the 30% off the odds maker AI and 20% off the year, so you get to walk out the door at 1480. That's a great, and the code on that, you see code Holly 2 there, that's incorrect. It should be Holly 9. I forgot to update that on the thing, but just go ahead and use the correct code and it'll do that anyways. And that's a great way to upgrade. If you're currently on $99 a month and you'd like to get access to the AI, you may as well also purchase the year, and it lets you save over $500 and do that right away. Thanks everyone again. Any questions about that, email info@trade-ideas.com. I'll go ahead and let you ask Steve and Jamie any of your remaining questions. Thanks, folks.
Yeah, there's a good question that just came in from a new trader saying, for new traders, do you recommend the AI? And the answer is yes, it is a great teaching tool. You may have heard us talk earlier this morning about how a lot of the professional traders that we talk about came into today thinking that we might be hitting some resistance, and we were a little concerned about all the long strategies, but watching an unemotional artificial intelligence bot trade, only trading when the statistics are lined up and the wins at your back and the probabilities are there. There's a lot to be learned. I mentioned many times also, who asked this question? Linda. I've mentioned many times, Linda, sometimes it's really interesting in the morning in the first 20 minutes as the market's looking for a direction, and you see the AI Holly all of a sudden just rip off about 6 or 7 shorts, nothing else. And the market starts to roll over and get weak. I don't know what she saw, but she saw something, and I've seen that more often than not. I really like watching her for market direction early in the morning. Same thing happened today, but it happened on the long side with a little bit of a twist. We were all expecting to see some good pullback and some resistance and maybe some shorts. But no, Holly said, nope, the numbers don't lie. I'm going to continue to go with where the odds are stacked up, and those were long trades. So a lot of times I'm getting my emotions and my trader's hat overwritten, or at least, a good second guessing by this unemotional robot riding shotgun with me here every single trading day. There's a lot to be learned, and Dan harps on that all the time. It's not just something that to blindly follow. You can do however you want. You can cherry pick, but paying attention to when trades are being put on with aggression, paying attention to when nothing's happening because there's nothing to do, and paying attention to the direction. Those are all things that can be very teachable moments when watching the AI. What do you think about that? Anything to add there?
Well, it's just like we say all the time. It's having a trader sitting right next to you, in essence, that trades perfect statistical probability, and you can see the trades they're putting on, right? So where are you going to get that? Nowhere. It's just like if you were in the casino counting cards at blackjack. Yeah, if they caught you, they'd kick you out. But just having the talent and the ability to do that is a thing in and of itself. Well, Holly does that every day, and just like Dan always likes to say, we don't make predictions. We simply tell you, Holly tells you, based on all of that number crunching the night before, over 1 million trades or right at 1 million trades, that, okay, based on what I've, filtered in today's market data and redid everything, these are the strategies that hold the most statistical probability tomorrow. Now, of course, if it's 70% probability, that doesn't mean that it's going to hit 70% probability, which brings up a good point, a good column to point out here. All of these strategies right here that you see in the hopper for today, this win percentage column right here was, okay, going into the market today, these are how the back test held up over the past X amount of days, 60 plus trading days. Now over here, win percent today, this is how the strategies performed today. This one came in at 64%, but it only nailed 25% of its trades today. These two guys right here, 59.4 over the past X amount of days, but performed at 72%, and this guy performed a little over 71%. This guy outperformed himself too, came in at 62, when the back test only showed 60. So you see, the AI, Holly, is that person that goes before you. You can follow. You can just look for the cherry trades that fit your palette as far as what you like on a chart. But you still know if a trade came from here, it's got a 61% chance of working based on all the numbers that we've crunched. So, you know, after a while, after you've watched Holly for 2 months, you're going to know a lot more than you ever did about trading, because, you know, it's like Wayne Gretzky said, all you got to do is show up most of the time. That's the majority of the battle, right? Just show up. Well, if you show up and watch Holly every day, you know, there are no guarantees, but, you know, learning, we should never stop doing that. And Holly is a pretty good teacher when it comes to statistical probability.
I want to answer a couple questions here audibly without typing so everybody can hear. Where do we see the strategies, the AI strategies for tomorrow? So if you have the AI license, you'll see it'll probably be in the middle of the night or pre-market tomorrow, or on a Friday. You'll see, like, you know, late at night on a Friday or a Saturday. But it takes most of the night to really get through the back testing and the optimization. So, you know, a few hours before market opens, you'll see the list of the new starting lineup, so to speak. And every day that list will change. So the answer, Fernando, is to you know, take a look prior to the opening bell, because all night is when the bench is being selected to see who gets to make the cut for the following day.
Yeah, usually it doesn't complete those calculations until sometime in the early morning Eastern time, you know, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, whatever. Sometimes shorter, sometimes longer, just depending on, you know, on what's found.
And Mitch did notice a discrepancy on your trend change lubricant. ADPDT showed up when it didn't show up on maybe the link that I set. There may be a little bit of a discrepancy between our two links. If you want to drop your cloud link.
I've been modifying this one.
This, yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
And if you wanted to, you could drop your cloud link in there too. You just basically have two different types of, or actually you might overwrite the other one. That's a good question. I'm not sure how that works. Okay, so there was one more question I did want to touch on, and that was regarding, a lot of people like to use trade ideas for some fundamental stuff. Do we have a column on there for earnings on that one, Jamie?
We can add it.
Let's go ahead and add it, because the question is, on the strategies, what is the earnings date column? And it's basically a number. If it's a negative number, and if it's a negative number that's over 1, like a -1 would mean earnings were 1 day ago. If you've got something on there that shows earnings date 0.25, that means we're probably getting close to the close and we're about ready to have earnings. If you saw a value of 10, you'd say you've got 10 trading days until earnings. So that's the gist of how the earnings date values work. And for some reason, it breaks it down into quadrants and quarters of the day. So you can have values like that, 0.75, you know, 3/4.
Yeah, so these guys should be reporting tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah. I do my back testing during the evening. Sometimes it's very slow. Is that because Holly is using some bandwidth at the same time? That is correct, Turbo 5. We're sharing our resources with the AI in the evening. Sometimes that can happen. I've noticed some of the best times to do back testing is like right after the market. What about you, Jamie? Do you notice any decent times? Or during the market if you're able to?
Well, see, we've been trying to work out load balancing with that so that, we distribute X amount of resources to just that process for, for people that subscribe, you want to do your back tests. So, just like with anything else, I think the more users are piling on the system, we're just going to have to allocate more resources to that. I know that's always it's an ongoing thing. We're constantly adding processing power and dedicated servers to just the odds maker itself, that do the crunching. Now, if you run into any, big problems, let us know, but there's always a little bit of congestion from time to time. Sometimes it's running really fast, sometimes it's middle of the road, sometimes I put 3 or 4 scans simultaneously and just check on them periodically,
Take one more question, and this is a very popular one, and this is a good answer. It's a good question, and we've got a good answer for you. If you minimize the trend change there.
Sure.
Very common question, makes perfect sense. How do we know what shake that money maker means? How do we know what you got what I need means? And it's coming. We're going to be bringing out forward to you guys a basic thumbnail description of the basics behind each strategy, because it is very important that, yeah, we're not trying to hide anything. I mean, obviously the code and the filters are proprietary, but it's very important, and we realize it's very important that traders understand exactly what fade the little big guy means, or fade the 52-week high.
Well, the bottom
That was
line
gonna be
is,
something
Steve,
special.
if you don't mind me jumping in here, is, I mean, really all you need to know at this point is whether it's a long or a short and what the hold time is geared for here, right? All that information is right here. Now, what's going on in the code underneath the covers? People ask the question all the time, can't you just send me that strategy, shake that money maker, I really like it? Well, yeah, I could, but you would derive no benefit from it, because what I would be sending you is the base, which is cranking
Vanilla.
out
Yeah,
a
it's vanilla.
gazillion trades, and so that's the point, is that it's just the base by itself, but Holly crunches the numbers and incorporates today's market data and then does the 65-day back test, and so
Optimizes.
it's a different animal every time, so there's nothing to give out, right? It's just a base. It's like a slab of marble, and then Holly comes and makes a sculpture out of it. Well, we just don't, we never know what's going to take place the night before and the adjustments that she's going to make until they're ready, if that makes any sense. I hope it does.
I think what I was trying to answer is there's a basic human curiosity wanting to know, well, what's the philosophy behind Sunrise Mover? And okay, well, Sunrise Mover is an early morning looking for upside momentum, and there'll be at some point, we've talked about trying to put out a basic thumbnail of what the gist of the strategy is without going too much into it, but we've had that question come before, and it has been discussed in our meetings, and at least I'm hoping and lobbying for us to try and get some sort of a thumbnail description of what those strategies are, just so we can give people a good feeling of that. Yeah, Jamie's correct. That's a long, that's a short, but what exactly is it looking for? And I don't think there'd be too much harm in trying to give people a thumbnail. Last I heard, we were talking about that, so hopefully that comes out in the future releases.
Right. In other words, it's a different version of all these things that you see. So, like, for example, tomorrow, if Sunrise Movers shows up again tomorrow, there's probably going to be a different filter assortment associated with that base that we've created. But as Steve said, as we move forward, just like the performance chart, we're going to make that more interactive so that our users can actually interact with that data. And along those same lines, with the AI strategies, in the future, if you create, a good strategy, you'll be able to load it in there and see what happens if we trade it. So we are going to make this a lot more customizable in the future. Just keep in mind, you guys are seeing, version 1.0 of Holly, who's only 3.5 months old. So, we do plan on adding layer upon layer of functionality as we move forward.
All right, well, I think our time has gone over, but that was a good session. I think we got through a lot. We had a great attendance today. I know you guys can't see that, but we had a really, really nice record attendance today. I appreciate you all showing up and listening to us drone off and sticking with us. We appreciate that.
Yes, indeed. Once again, I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy day. We know you guys are busy to come hear what we have to say. And, for any of you people out there that are just signing up for the first time, when you do sign up, make sure you navigate over to the web page, scroll to the bottom, and under the support tab, you can click on training and sign up for a training session with either Steve or myself.
All right, so we'll see some of you regulars on Thursday. If not, have a good trading week, everybody.
Yeah, thanks everyone for attending. There'll be a recording up on that playlist before tomorrow. Thanks, guys.
Happy trading.
Bye.